Erwan and Alicia Davon use their backgrounds in Zen Buddhism, psychology, and women's sexuality studies to develop the Pleasure Course, which has helped thousands achieve their ideal love lives. They provide a safe place to explore psychological inquiry, pleasure, and sexuality. Recently, their work has focused on pandemic-related intimacy issues with singles, dating intimacy during the pandemic, and couples physically close but losing connection. How does a lens of psychology really fit in with being in tune with our sexual selves? Like, how does someone who doesn't study psychology or know much about it, they might be like, well, how does psychology and, learning about your mind and your emotions and these sort of things, what does that have to do with sex?
So we have a term for psychology. We call it a person's relationship blueprint. And that relationship blueprint is something that's forged in the crucible of our childhood.
So what are you guys seeing coming up since the pandemic? What are the people in your audiences, the people you guys are working with? What's coming up a lot? Like, what are some common issues? Some things that some listeners may be able to go, oh, that's happening with me. I would love to hear that explained.
There's a couple that I'm working with, and they're a young couple. They have 2 little kids. They both work these crazy tech jobs, and they're just like, And one of the things they said in one of the first couple sessions I had with them, they're like, we're couch potatoes, after the whole day and the work and the kids, and then they're in bed, and like, we just want to on the couch and eat potato chips and watch Netflix. There's nothing wrong with that inherently, but there wasn't time set aside for their relationship. It's one thing, and it's a beautiful thing to have goals in your relationship life, a vision, like, let's connect more, let's have more sex, let's be more intimate. But it's so important to actually get that into your schedule and your calendar. We're huge fans of actually scheduling, for people that are in relationship. We call it pleasure time.
So if a guy's watching a lot of porn and ejaculating a lot, he's going to be really drained. There's not going to be much response left for real women in his life, or if he's in a relationship, a real woman in his life. It's a little bit like being an alcoholic and living in a bar. And that's a good tip for your audience, Jacob. Speed dating, speed dating online is pretty optimal because it's so convenient. If I were single, I would do 2 or 3 speed dating events per week, literally.
Oh, wow.
They're like $30, spend $30 to $90 per week, meet 5 to 10 people every time. You get a lot of social interaction, which takes away from the loneliness and the isolation. You potentially meet somebody.
Around when it came time to get sensual, around these moments, she would kind of bring up some drama. She would kind of create her own friction, or, and it would cause an argument around these things. I thought that was super interesting, because I think that of course seems kind of unconscious, right? Who would want to do that? Who would knowingly try to bring arguments when they would like to release that tension in another way?
Third thing is body practice, especially in the pandemic, particularly important. People are really in their heads as human beings. Our brain is the most developed of all of our organs and systems compared to other animals. So people just end up in their heads. And when we're spending a lot of time without social interaction in our houses, on Zoom, etc., really easy to do that, right? So body practice could be anything. Right now, I've got this mat under my feet. You can't see it, but like I'm rolling around this sort of ball with my feet and that kind of thing. And I've got a yoga block there, and there's some texture, and like, we've got sort of yoga props kind of all around our house. So we're sort of like always doing yoga. It could be walking, body practice could be walking around barefoot. It could be lifting weights. It could be taking a shower. It could be anything, but just that there's a consistent practice to stay in one's body. And then the fourth one is sensual practice, which can be anything of the senses, from music to incense, all the way to sexual practice, practiced alone or with a partner. We have a whole set of practices. So daily practice is what makes a difference. That's another thing I picked up in the Zen monastery. People kind of think that intellectually knowing something is really living it or knowing it, but that's not true. Mm-hmm. So the most famous Zen master said, practice is enlightenment. That just totally blew me away. So those are the ones that we've found make the biggest difference.
Yeah. Yeah, I was thinking about, I forget who says it, but before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. Yeah.
So what most people know as orgasm is like a climax orgasm, right? We call it traditional peak orgasm. You know, you're going along, you know, let's say you're with someone, you're making out, you're getting more turned on, and it kind of plateaus a little bit. Then it spikes up and you go over the edge and have that rapid set of contractions and that extreme pleasure. You had an orgasm. That's awesome. Now, extended orgasm is having all of those same signs of orgasm, clinical signs like involuntary contractions in the genitals and, you know, the extreme pleasure in the genitals, which is not really clinical. You can't really measure that, but that pleasure and increased heart rate and all these signs over an extended period of time. Your body has the ability to release into a state of orgasm over time.
It's kind of like where we started our conversation, Jacob. If we embrace change, there's usually all kinds of opportunities.